love this map.
Now against him because it was
so long.
blatant. It was so un-American. It was so treasonous. No Democrats here.
I love it. Getting killed.
The most powerful parts of the January 6th House Committee was when it was Republicans, when it was Trumpers who were offering their testimony about what he did. The same is true here in this document. These are Republicans. These are diehard Republicans, diehard Trumpers. That is, these are Republicans who stood in the breach. They did the right thing, but some of them suffered real electoral consequences. We heard about Rusty Bowers. He got crushed in the Republican primary trying to be House Speaker again in Arizona. Liz Cheney, Representative Cheney, was the star of the January 6th series. She got crushed in the Republican primary in the aftermath. Evidence is this is still Donald Trump's party. Are there exceptions? Yes. Brad Raffensperger won re-election as Georgia's Secretary of State. From these other candidates on the campaign trail that includes Tim Scott, that includes Governor DeSantis, that includes just not all of them, save maybe Chris Christie and Asa Hutchinson. They're all still toeing the line. They're attacking the Department of Justice, and Donald Trump is the odds-on favorite to be the nominee again next year. Other indictments have only helped his poll numbers in the GOP primary. Of course, it could be a different story in the general election, which is going to be happening this trial. And we heard from Trump's lawyers last night. Previewing what we think their defenses will be. He believed that he won.
Wow.
The election was stolen from him. The indictment shows otherwise, the evidence that people were telling him.
Jesus Christ, man.
That's going to be Trump's mindset. Potentially effective defense.
Overclock online. Our UAV is orbiting the area. Enemy personnel at the hard
if he wants to.
Wow, oh my God, I fucking can't get a kill. Jesus fucking Christ, man. Back to this bullshit.
Carroll case. He wanted to speak with us in a Mueller investigation.
God damn it.
Good defense lawyer will not want to put him on the stand, and that will be blocked if he actually takes the stand.
Hostile UAV in the area.
To clear his point that defense needs facts. There are so many facts listed in this indictment. There were facts to support that subjectively.
Wow.
You know, 7 years later, and there's still
1 in 5. That's fucking awesome.
So I think there's a genuine real problems with kids mounting that type of and then finally, if you look at the indictment, just think about the allegations of how many times he lied. If you believe this, why are you resorting to so many false statements with respect to even your own vice president? For instance, on January 5th, when he issued a statement saying that the vice president agreed with him that the vice president had the power to change the votes and to send us back to the states. And the vice president, as the indictment alleges, said that is the absolute opposite of what he was telling the president. So the series of lies that are listed in the indictment really belie.
Oh wow, they want to do that.
There is a law point, which is it's not entirely clear that for all of these charges, his subjective belief on that matters, because there's certain things which I can't do. If you believe you won, the way that you deal with that is go to court and bring a case to show that there was fraud in the election. Well, he did that, and the indictment says that would have been that is a lawful means to challenge the results. The problem is he lost, as Willie said, over 60 times. So once that's done, you don't get to take the law into your own hands, regardless of whether you are a foot soldier or the former president of the United States.
Andrew Weissman, thank you very much for coming on this morning. Of course, this is a case with a judge presiding who has dealt with J6 murders. 4 counts, simple, clear lines, 4 counts, 1 defendant. Definitely looking like it's set up to be a speedy trial, unlike all the other indictments that the president did. completely unprecedented. And David Prince, you
last place. Look at that. That's awesome, man. Gotta love being in last place every motherfucking game. Look at that, yeah. God, I love it. I wish I was in last place forever. But you know what? I will be.
Risking the very existence of our democracy. There is no sure way to shake their predictions, especially if they are convinced that Trump is the innocent victim of the deep state. The judicial system can expose his claims to exacting scrutiny, and that scrutiny has the potential to change those minds that are open to the truth. Smith has brought a difficult case, but it's a necessary case. Foot soldiers of the
not even a hit. No assist, no nothing, and I'm dead. What am I, 1-4 and fucking 9? Great. I don't even know what I'm doing.
I think there are a lot of Americans who are hurting, who believe Trump's lies, and I think it's hopefully a time for a national conversation. It's definitely not a time to shame anybody who's been led down a path of lies, and to try and help people understand the Republicans here have testified on they have shown
wow, my God. Wow. Wow. You gotta have pay to win guns in this game to win, man. You gotta spend the money. You wanna win. Wow. So fucking bad. Wow. I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do here. Wow. I'm just getting my fucking ass kicked. And I can't do a damn thing about it. Oh wow. Oh wow. Of course. Of course.
Trying to poke holes in the prosecution's case. This is you're going to see
5 kills. That was the best game of my career. 5 kills. I don't think I'm going to play this map again. I used to rule this map, but not now. How many times did I get killed? 12. Wow.
And it's all diminishing from here. That's where I hope
5 and 12. Damn.
If we are there, this trial is going to be an important piece of that puzzle to obliterate this conviction that so many Americans.
It almost makes me not want to play. So fucking bad I'm gotten.
That's why it's so key to bring this case.
You know, David, I remember, and I've talked about it before on this program. I remember my dad.
I still got shit on here.
Of course, my parents, like your parents, I'm sure.
Jesus Christ! I don't know what to use anymore. I suck with every weapon I pulled on here. Every fucking weapon. I'm horrible.
By the chaos of the 1960s and the chaos of the early 1970s, undermining what they believed a post-war America should look like, you know, riots in Chicago, riots across the country. And so they saw Nixon as the guy that was,
Yeah, they're going to put me in the middle of a match and I'm going to get my fucking ass kicked again.
East Coast elites think that it's the communists. It's the communists, you know, who wants to
deployed.
came out. The paper down and saying, just shaking his head.
Need to patch up! Enemy taking Bravo.
This was very says there's still people that were there when my dad went to July 1974. People were
Secure Bravo.
just in basic times because they go and
We have to turn this
Push your bloody
Charlie secure.
probably an 80 to
Secure Bravo.
It doesn't seem to be reflected in the polls, but I'm curious. I would guess if I'm hearing that anecdote, you're hearing that anecdote.
Securing objective
Yeah,
Bravo.
absolutely. That Times poll that I referenced was kind of
Bravo,
mind-blowing.
secure.
So you had in that poll 3 times.
Enemy taking Bravo.
That's 27% were hard for Trump. They didn't see any Trump as any influence. 37% were persuaded them. They roughly breaks out the experience and let me know persuadable. When they have suspicions about 2020, but they can't really do something they really know why they have suspicions about 2020. They don't know quite literally how.
Taking Bravo.
Conspiracy and look, this
Enemy securing Bravo.
it is not widely known that theory
Fucking kills again. Wow. I think I'm done playing with it. Wow. Now I didn't get a kill there. I didn't get a kill there. That's just amazing. I have no idea what gun to use. I'm getting obliterated with everything. Unbelievable. Out of bullets. Out of fucking bullets. There we go. What kind of fucking gun do you start with 12 bullets?
they're going to jail now. Defaced the Capitol.
Yeah.
We're losing Charlie.
Plant the
Securing
bomb!
objective Alpha. We've been defeated.
Jail sentences that are possible up to 20 years. A couple of them up to 10 years, and one up to 5 years. Just one person. One man that is convicted for a man that is 78 years old.
Fucking 7 and 9.
From prison.
And he will be disgraced. Someone who always wanted to come from the outside and show the guys that he considered on the inside that I beat him will go out in history as an ultimate disgrace. The sad part is
I have no idea.
that believed him really did believe him when he knew better. And this evidence, this indictment shows that. But the bigger picture for people like me that have fought for voting rights is that he really didn't care that people stood in line all over his country and voted. It didn't even matter to him. My mother and father, my father from Florida, my mother from Alabama, moved to New York because they couldn't get in their lifetime their vote protected until the Civil Rights, the Voting Rights Act of '65. Yet their generation produced people like me that could run for president. None of that mattered to you.
I don't know what to pick because I'm playing like shit so badly.
But, you know, Joe's an old music.
I mean, I have never played this bad before.
There's a song that if you dance to the music, you're going to have to pay the piper.
Wow, I just get my ass destroyed.
This is a deeply damaged country we're talking about, and there's no accounting for the damage, the amount of damage that a single individual, a former president of the United States, has done to the country while he was in office. Your job right now is to tell us, through your knowledge of history, past and present, that there is hope, that the sun will come out on American democracy, that it has not faded, that we are still alive, still Americans, still a thriving democracy.
This country is a multiracial, integrated democracy since 1965, which is 20 minutes ago.
Wow.
We abolished slavery. As a segregated and in a lot of cases, and a country that endorsed and perpetuated human enslavement. In the middle of the 1960s.
I didn't even get a kill on that one or a fucking.
Fully live into the Declaration. If we can make it's not a case for it's not a case that's not
Not even hit them. Captain assist.
John Meacham and Rick Shelton, thank you both very much for being on this call. And still, indictment will be joined by Watergate journalist Neil Katyal, MSNBC chief legal
There ain't no airstrike ever that I ever not died from. What a shitty place to put the trophy.
From Tom Nichols' new piece, Indian we go to break and investigation featuring Eric Hirschman,
5 and 10.
White House lawyer who pushed
Well,
Johnny's
I don't know what happened to me. I used to go 60 and fucking 10 in this game. Now I'm going the opposite direction.
highlight some conspiracy theories, and someone could argue Donald Trump's thoughts and Donald Trump's conspiracy theories that he was pushing to try and overturn an election. That's exactly what's happening with this indictment is not specific, though. It's about defrauding the United States, obstructing the proceeding, conspiracy against rights for voters to decide who the president will be. Counts focusing on Donald Trump's actions. That's what Jack's to prove to a jury of 12 that these actions happened. I'm just wondering how much what you and the investigation measures up to what you're seeing in this indictment.
God, it's so fucking slow. Look how slow this shit is. Wow, these airstrikes are fucking killing me. Wow, wow. Wow.
So many of those witnesses worked for Donald Trump, worked in the West Wing, were in the rooms where these conversations were happening. How important was it to you to have those voices receiving this indictment?
Tremendously important, Willie, and it enhances the credibility of the evidence. When it comes to people that are close to the conspiracy, to the lead defendant, all of our witnesses were in the room where things happened. They were Trump appointees, they were members of his administration. So therefore, it would be very difficult for President Trump's lawyers to argue some sort of bias or that they are lying because they have a personal grudge against the president. In a conspiracy, in any conspiracy, the most important evidence comes from inside. Right? You want to get people who were there for conversations, who were present for acts and furtherance of the conspiracy. We fortunately had a lot of really courageous Republican insiders who came forward. Those same people have come forward before the special counsel's grand jury, and they will come forward at trial, and they frankly are the silver linings of hope in here in this story, because they did the right thing and put principle over party.
Tim, Claire McCaskill here. I know that from my perspective, and I think from most of everyone's perspective, the January 6th committee was really the impetus for the Department of Justice getting serious about this case. It was so powerful is because the story was told on television. It was a very clear story, riddled with important facts, riddled with important witnesses, and everyone got to see it. As you are aware, Rule 53 of the federal system says that that is another form of criminal in this instance. It is the people
Recommendations and lessons learned to try to
Investigator for the January 6th. Thank you very much for coming on this historic morning. And Claire McCarthy, thank you as well, as always. It is just past the top of the third hour of morning show. Indictment of former President Donald Trump. Voted to charge the president with election orders to stay in power during the 2020 election. 5 pages lays out conspiracy to defraud the United States, conspiracy to obstruct an official proceeding, conspiracy against Trump is scheduled to make his first court appearance in this new case tomorrow at 4 p.m. in Washington. A lot to look at here, Joe. The judge presiding in this case.
Sympathetic to the rights. That's just election. Andrew Weiss, when I thought it was fascinating, said, well, you know, because if you believe federal courts, he did. He lost 64 cases before the federal courts. Just for argument's sake.
What the fuck is he seeing?
Every lawyer Donald Trump hired to run his White House, his attorney general.
Oh wow, you got home early. You what? So you left? Is he grumpy? Oh, he's tired? Well, you get to come home then, right? We'll give him a call a little later and see if he's feeling better, you know?
Copy that.
I got Joe and Mika on if you want to watch with me. You want to pass?
Hostile UAV overhead.
It's right there in a second.
Oh, let me see it. Yeah, I can see why you didn't want to wear it. Yeah, and you're right, it is very Star Trek-ish. You could be an extra at Star Trek. You wouldn't even have to wear it to get a change of clothing. Star Trek. Your mom didn't even like it when she got it? She never wore it?
Trophy system out!
Well, that's a little better. Meow.
Yeah, and another note, Mike, on Judge Joe and Nico were just talking about the judge talking to Jack.
Meow.
Of course, we're starting to hear the attacks. I'm sure they've started already that she's a partisan. On June the 4th, 2014, she was confirmed in the United States Senate by a vote of 95-0. That includes votes from Ted Cruz, Ron Johnson, Marco Rubio, all the Republicans that I'm sure we can expect to go after her. So just keep that in mind. So we get back to the indictment here in this 45-page document. One of the defenses we've been hearing already is that Donald Trump was acting in good faith and he actually thought he would win the election. That's completely blown up in this indictment by all the advisors, the aides, the cabinet members who said clearly and plainly you lost. The other is that this is a First Amendment case, that he has the right and had the right to say all the things he said around the 2020 election. Well, Jack Smith, the special counsel, has said, totally agree. You've got the right to say whatever you want. You can lie till you're blue in the face, and you did. What you don't have the right to do is to work in the way you did and to participate in an alleged conspiracy then to take action to overturn the results of the 2020 election.
Yeah, Jack Smith is absolutely right. He put that right up top of the indictment, actually. It's one thing to have beliefs. We all have beliefs. Donald Trump had the belief that he won. He can articulate it as long as he wants. But he does not have the right to transform that belief into illegal conduct. And that's where he's got an issue. The other thing about the judge that you just referenced, it's going to start.
So
it hasn't started already.
Yeah, because he's like, I could do this shit myself.
Claire Castro put her finger on something that has to happen, I would think, in order to heal this damaged country. Put this trial of Donald J. Trump on TV. Put it on TV so that every American, no matter who you voted for, no matter what you believe, you can hear listings of facts presented. Not myth, not guesses, not politics, facts. And you can hear witnesses who will testify to the facts. That would be a great thing for the health of this democracy.
And it's a great point, Mika. It's one that Neil Katyal has been making relentlessly in the last 12 hours. He'll be our guest shortly. And it was the power of those January 6th committee hearings. We saw and heard the faces and the voices of the people who worked with Donald Trump and said they made the pleas to him to stop what was happening on January 6th, to stop lying about the 2020 election. We'll see. That may be a Supreme Court decision ultimately about whether there are cameras in this courtroom, but an important point by Mike.
And the sad reality, once again, to reinforce that there are so many facing the consequence of believing those lies to the point that they would go to the Capitol and riot on that day. Joining the conversation we have, Pulitzer Prize-winning associate editor of the Washington Post, Bob Woodward, former U.S. attorney and MSNBC legal analyst Joyce Vance, Washington correspondent for the New York Times, Michael Schmidt, and former federal prosecutor, Georgetown law professor Paul Butler, and founder of the conservative website The Bulwark, Charlie Sykes, joins us this morning.
So, Joyce, why don't you walk us through this? What should we expect to see over the next several months?
Well, what we'll see will be the beginning of the process we would see in any prosecution. There will be an exchange of discovery by the prosecution to the defendant. It primarily goes that direction in criminal cases. And we'll see Donald Trump file a flurry, very likely, of pretrial motions designed to challenge the legality of the indictment. We can expect to see that full range of claims that we've heard him seemingly try on in public over the last few months. But, Joe, to the point that you've been making this morning, this indictment is crafted in a highly strategic fashion that essentially makes most of those sorts of defenses irrelevant to the debate. Jack Jack Smith makes it very clear as he designs this indictment that the former president is charged with his conduct, not with his speech. They avoid the incident on the ellipse. There will be no sort of a First Amendment defense that will work against these charges. And in all things, he seems to have been very deliberate about not just the charges that he selected, but about the facts that he uses to underlie them, so that they would take away some of these defenses, including, of course, this defense we've all been talking about, that Trump was simply acting on what he believed to be true, that he had won the election. And ultimately, his defense comes down to willful blindness. Everyone around him knew. Everyone around him told him. The courts told him that he had lost. He exhausted all of his legal avenues for challenging that. And then he pushes ahead. And that's the point where Jack Smith strikes and charges him with criminal conduct.
And, you know, there are a flurry of challenges to this case. Past this prologue, you look at the 63 cases on this election fraud conspiracy theory, all thrown out by courts, by whether they're liberals, whether the judges are Federalist Society members, all thrown out. You look at what the very conservative Georgia Supreme Court did in that case about election fraud on the state level, throwing out all of its challenges day after day. You look at what the D.C. Circuit has done over the past several months, over the past several years, actually, thrown out his challenges, any privileged challenges that he or others may have made. You look at the Supreme Court of the United States, the same there. I mean, it seems to be Donald Trump. I don't know if his lawyers have the nerve to tell him this, but if he doesn't win it, like in the courtroom, he ain't going to win it on appeal if past his prologue here.
Yeah, Joe, that's exactly right. So think of two kinds of defenses that the former president is offering. One is main defense. It's political. It's to try to win re-election and then to appoint an attorney general who will dismiss the case. He might also try to pardon himself, but that would set up a battle with the Supreme Court, or at least send the case to the Supreme Court for it to decide. We don't know which way it would go. The legal defense that we've heard so far is that he was acting on the advice of counsel. That's not going to fly. Or that he didn't have criminal intent, that what he was doing was part of his presidential responsibilities to assure that the election was fair. That's not going to fly. And also, as we heard from Joyce, this bogus First Amendment. It's not true that you can say anything without criminal consequences. You can't say things that are not true in a way that results in the subversion of democracy. And that's what this indictment forcefully accuses the former president of doing.
Bob Woodward, we've had some people say this morning as we look through this indictment, Watergate was bad, but this 45-page indictment makes Watergate look quaint by comparison. What's your analysis and your reaction to what you've read here?
Well, no one's going to ever make Watergate quaint because of the tapes, and you see multiple crimes by the sitting president. But this is an astonishing moment, as people have noted in this indictment. And go back to the January 6th committee. They laid out the facts. And the problem Jack Smith had, what is the crime to fit these facts? And he found in the criminal code, 18 U.S.C. section 371, it sounds kind of technical, but actually that section clearly lays out and nails these facts. And what Trump is alleged to have done is defraud the U.S. government, and in a very important Supreme Court decision written 100 years ago by Chief Justice Taft, who'd been president, then went to the Supreme Court, the Hammerschmidt case, in which Taft says this section of the law says if you do something that is basically dishonest, you have violated the law. Throughout this indictment, Trump's behavior on all of this, the core is dishonesty dishonest behavior by means that are dishonest. And so it actually laces up a history that goes way back, and it really enshrines what the January 6th committee did in some news reporting by your network, lots of other organizations saying these are the facts. It couldn't be clearer.
Joyce, everyone knows that 50 years ago, Bob Woodward, Carl Bernstein, Ben Bradley, Catherine Graham, and the Washington Post helped prop up and save democracy. And I think it was maybe 49 years ago, at some point this week, maybe yesterday or the day before, that the principal counselor to the President of the United States, John Ehrlichman, was sentenced to jail for his part in the cover-up. And it struck me reading the 45-page Jack Smith indictment yesterday that there was an element in there that I believe you could correct me or point out what happened. An element in there that was very familiar and may have been part of John Ehrlichman's sentence, why he was sentenced.
So you're absolutely right, Mike. You have a great memory for this. We're talking now about the fourth of the charges against Donald Trump. It's actually the third conspiracy for those who are trying to keep score at home. And this is familiar territory for civil rights prosecutors like myself. I guess we're sort of a rare breed. But this statute, part of this code of criminal law, 18 U.S. Code 241, is about a civil rights conspiracy. And John Ehrlichman gets charged with that same charge that we see now brought against Donald Trump in connection with the Watergate burglary. And the charge is a little bit different. It doesn't involve voting. In fact, if you don't mind, I'll read just a sentence from the indictment of Donald Trump that clarifies how the charge is used against him, because I think it's chilling. Trump is charged with entering into a conspiracy that's designed to injure, oppress, threaten, and intimidate one or more persons in the free exercise and enjoyment of a right and privilege secured to them by the Constitution and laws of the United States. That is the right to vote and to have one's vote counted. That's what the former president stands charged with. And something that we learned in the Ehrlichman case before he was appealed was what that meant about the state of mind that the government has to prove against a defendant who faces this charge is. The government, in the case of Donald Trump, as they did with Ehrlichman, will have to show that he engaged in conduct, he intended to engage in conduct that would deprive people of constitutional rights that are well known, that are firmly established. And that raw legal language, I think, is in many ways so antiseptic. But what underlies it is this notion that the former president wanted to steal all of our rights to vote. He wanted to render our right to vote, our right to choose, ineffective. It would have been the end of democracy if he had succeeded. That's the echo back to Watergate.
Michael Schmidt, according to yesterday's indictment, a top Trump advisor increasingly became frustrated with the lack of evidence of any voter fraud provided by Trump and co-conspirator number one, who appears to be Rudy Giuliani. According to the document, on December 8th, a senior campaign advisor who spoke with the defendant on a daily basis and had informed him on multiple occasions that various fraud claims were untrue, expressed frustration that many of co-conspirator one and his legal team's claims could not be substantiated. As early as mid-November, for instance, the senior campaign advisor had informed the defendant that his claims of a large number of dead voters in Georgia were untrue. With respect to the persistent false claim regarding State Farm Arena on December 8th, the senior campaign advisor wrote in an email, "When our research and campaign legal team can't back up any of the claims made by our elite strike force legal team, you can see why we are 0 for 32 on our cases. I'll obviously hustle to help on all fronts, but it's tough to own any of this when it's all just conspiracy, expletive, beamed down from the mothership." And Michael Schmidt, you're looking at Jack Smith's process, his approach to all of this. What do instances like these tell you about these counts against the former president and a speedy trial?
So what's sort of remarkable about the document and the case that is laid out and the story that is laid out is how much the people around the president, Republicans, people who had been loyal to the president, were telling him over and over again there was nothing to this. This is folks at the Justice Department. These are folks on the campaign. These are aides at the White House. And this is littered, and more than littered, this is a theme throughout the entire indictment. It shows that time and time again, Trump had been told by people who knew and people who he had relied on before that there was nothing to this. And that really helps enforce the idea that he was engaging in this effort that was corrupt to overturn the election. That even if he says he believed this stuff, he should have known, based on the overwhelming things that these people were telling him, that the election had not been stolen, that he had lost fair and square. And it's part of, I think, what made the January 6th report so compelling and what makes this indictment so compelling. It's that it's relying on the people around the president to show what he had been told, and that he was being repeatedly told this, and that he was ignoring it. It helps develop a narrative of this corrupt intent. It shows how deep-seated and destructive this campaign was that he was engaged in. And I think it's really what helps make the entire case that was laid out yesterday something as strong as legal experts have said that it is. So it will be very interesting to see if, when this goes to trial, what the testimony of those individuals looks like. We know from the January 6th committee and the videos that they put out of the transcripts, of the interviews that were done of those witnesses, what those witnesses look like. But you could then have them on the witness stand.
Yeah. Charlie Sykes, I have been this morning talking about how, while there's much to be distressed about when you look at our former party, when you look at certain news networks, there's also, as Mike Barnicle said earlier, you don't usually hear this from Mike Barnicle, some rays of sunshine. He certainly is not talking about what the Red Sox did at trade deadline or what his team has been doing this year. But I talked about, I'm glad Mike had some rays of sunshine in an otherwise depressing day for Red Sox Nation. But his was in a deeply disturbing indictment against a deeply disturbed president, former president of the United States. I've been talking about Republicans and Jack Smith, no Democrats, no MSNBC primetime hosts, no New York Times editorial page editors, no left-wing Marxists from Berkeley, no this, no that. They're all not only just Republicans, they're Trumpers, hardcore Trumpers that stay from Charlottesville through 2 impeachments, you name it. And so that is something to take heart in. I do feel, though, now that I've mentioned that repeatedly over the past 3 hours, it's important for us to repeat for the second time the pressing response by some of the Republican elected officials, from Tim Scott to Kevin McCarthy. Truly, I mean, you and I know, you and I never saw this coming from these people that we both know, that we both like, but never could have imagined in a million years where Donald Trump's people say he was trying to subvert American democracy, and they can't just come out and condemn that sort of action. Instead, they try to turn it on Joe Biden or Hunter Biden or the rule of law. It's really distressing.
Well, and it's familiar by now, right? I mean, the default setting is that nothing matters, that they're going to go along with all of this, that Donald Trump's poll numbers among Republicans will, in fact, go up. But let me give you the flip side of this, not to be too optimistic here. The effect of Jack Smith's indictment is to flood the zone with Donald Trump's criminality. Republicans desperately next year want to talk about inflation. They want to talk about the border. They want to talk about crime. They want to talk about Hunter Biden. Instead, this is what they're going to get. Think about Donald Trump's. He's running for president. Republicans are running in 2024, and there's going to be one trial after another. Donald Trump, the fraudster. Donald Trump, a rapist. Donald Trump, the man who violated the Espionage Act. Donald Trump, who lied about the election and tried to overturn democracy. This is going to suck up all of the oxygen. And look, these Republicans are going through the motions. But they bought the ticket here, Joe. This is what they signed up for. If they are going to lash themselves to Donald Trump, the next and a half is going to be January 6th, the big lie in a loop. And of course, okay, so nothing matters for the Republican base, the MAGA base. I think we understand that. But it's also worthwhile reminding ourselves that they are not the only people that vote in a presidential election. And in fact, you have independents, you have Democrats who need to be motivated, you have some Republican, and we are going to have a remarkable year. I mean, and the other, just may be a somewhat trivial point, but being a criminal defendant is very time consuming. And, among the many unprecedented things that we're facing is we've never had a candidate for president of the United States who had so much on his legal calendar at the same time that he is running a campaign. That's going to be interesting to see how that plays out.
It's really staggering. I am curious, Charlie. We talked to David French a little while ago, and David, like myself, the majority of people were around day in and day out are Republicans. The majority of people were around day in, day out actually voted for Donald Trump in 16 and 20. That being said, what David French and I have seen over the past 3-4 months especially, an exhaustion level where the same people that gleefully told me they voted for Trump in 16 and 20, even after he called me a murderer a dozen times. So these are not people who are trying to court favor with me, are now throwing their arms up in the air saying, exhausted, can't do it anymore, he's going to lose again, he's going to jail. I'm curious, it's anecdotal, but I learned in politics when I ran, anecdotal evidence adds up quick. I'm curious if you're hearing the same thing from your Republican community that David French and I are hearing from ours.
Well, I sat down with Dave for my podcast today, and then we went through all of this. Look, the problem is that we've been doing this now for 7 years, and it is one thing to make one rationalization after another, but quite frankly, it is exhausting. It is exhausting to carry all of this, and there is just so much. There is so much dishonesty. There is just so much, and there, on so many different levels. If you're not bothered by the big lie about the election and the conspiracy to overthrow the election, what about rape? What about fraud? What about the Espionage Act? And so, that's the question: is the burden of this, the cumulative weight of all of this, and it's all going to come to a head in early 2024 if these trials go ahead. I mean, just imagine what these trials will be like. Take the OJ trial times 10. Think the January 6th committee times, 1,000. And it will be inescapable. And at some point, Republicans have to look at one another and go, is this worth it? How far are we going to go? We have come thus far. But, man, the burden is getting more and more unbearable. You think so? Again, they've signed up for this. All polls would suggest. I mean, this indictment drops the same day that Donald Trump is tied the poll with Joe Biden. Comes the day after that New York Times poll showing him dominating the Republican field. So they made their choice, and they're going to get it good and hard.
As you read through this 45-page indictment, you would think even some Republicans would say what Mike Pence said yesterday. He said, quote, "Today's indictment serves as an important reminder anyone who puts himself over the Constitution should never be president of the United States." Paul Butler, if you allow me to engage in a hypothetical here, forgive me for putting you in the position of being on Donald Trump's defense team, but as you look at this menu of problems legally in front of you, and frankly some of the prison sentences on the other side of them, if convicted, is there any world, and there's no indication that this is being offered by the special counsel, you can see those maximum prison sentences down the right side of your screen if you're watching at home, is there any world where the defense is looking at this and saying, we've got to try to cut a deal somehow. We've got to keep you out of jail because if it's not this case, it's going to be Mar-a-Lago. If it's not that one, it could be If it's not that one, it could be Georgia. Would you be looking to cut a deal if you were Donald Trump's defense team?
If you're Donald Trump's defense team, you're absolutely looking to cut a deal. That's what happens in 90% of federal prosecutions. The defendant ends up pleading guilty. The defense team would actually love that, given the strength of the evidence in all of these cases, but especially the federal prosecutions. The problem is that the defense team is beholden to their client, Donald Trump, who has both political and personal issues with pleading guilty. But at the end of the day, if he does not want to go to prison, his best choice is to try to work out a deal with Jack Smith that consolidates both of these cases in a guilty plea that either results in no prison time, which would be a tough call for Jack Smith, but he might be willing to make it, or little prison time. We know that Judge Chutkan, if she gets to sentence Donald Trump, she is likely to throw the book at him based on her experience in other January 6 cases. Of the 24 judges in the D.C. District Court who had January 6 related cases, Judge Chutkan is the toughest sentencer.
And in fact, John Roberts is a judge who's given sentences more than prosecutors have requested in some of these January 6 cases, and we should underline the fact that Special Counsel Jack Smith in that office has given no indication there's a deal on the table, just a hypothetical that Trump's team may want to see one, given what's ahead of them.
Yeah, to this point, at least publicly, Trump's team has also said they don't want a deal. Trump has said he will continue his campaign. He's posted on Truth Social this morning, thanking everyone and telling them he loves the ball. We're not sure why. Appropriately, we want to give you the final word right now. In this singular American moment, where do you think we go from here?
Well, I think there actually is some optimism in all of this, and it's a very important thing. And that is about being in the post-truth manner. And as roughly 4 standards in establishing facts. Do you have
President Biden be speaking about Donald Trump's that question straight ahead. You're
Nice spawn. I mean, that is just incredible. Wow.
I think this is as we go right now.
to figure out how to run against Trump and the details of the type of things that are in here. And the context there is not about getting into the specifics of the indictment or Trump's criminal challenges or the legal cases or what's going on here. It's necessary to yesterday or last night, the day before January 6th,
wow.
The transition, and what we were worried about at that moment was there's a delay in the certification of the coming from the floor of the shenanigans. I mean, this time of year, legislative standpoint, or members who are supporters of Trump, we underestimated what he did, what Trump was capable of. And reading this is a reminder of what he is capable of. And that is a thing that stuck out to me because we still have a lot of time to go. Trump is not going to be mute. He's going to be out there on the campaign trail. We've seen him already trying to raising money, already trying to get his people to and that's the other place to work. The White House, if you're staying in the White House, you want this to be about Trump. You want the air, the space, all of that to be on that because that's the right thing for history and the right thing for them politically in this moment as well.
You know, Jen, we all did. Certainly, you said you did. I would just say I did as well. We estimated the lengths to which he would continue to go, trying to overthrow this election. And after reading this, I also will admit I underestimated many Republican office holders' dedication to their oath over Donald Trump. You read through this time and time again, whether it was acting attorney generals inside the White House, whether it was speakers of the House. You know, there would be a collective panic when you would see Michigan's Speaker of the House and head of the Senate go Donald Trump. When Donald Trump would put out a statement lying about Mike Pence, would say Mike Pence agrees with me. Time and time again, Pence time and time again pushed back on the lies. It really was. It was striking, like reading this, just how far Donald Trump would go and how time and again he met resistance from Republican office holders, Republican appointees.
Yeah, I had a similar reaction, and I kind of have these nerdy labels at the top state by state, because what is so effective about how this is written, and maybe Jack Smith is a better communicator than we give him credit for, by the way, that's another takeaway, is that these officials in these states, to your point, I mean, there's an entire section on each state. Georgia specifically stuck out to me as all of these officials standing up time and time again. Now, we knew this from all of the reporting and discussion over the last couple of years, but it does stand out to you. Also, on page 36 of this indictment, if people haven't read through it, I recommend they do it. It starts the whole conversations and the whole perspective of Mike Pence and the private conversations Mike Pence had with Donald Trump, including, which stuck out to me, and I can't get it out of my head, this moment where his chief of staff was so concerned because Donald Trump essentially threatened him in a private meeting, who was concerned about Mike Pence's safety. That is the vice president of the United States who served with the president, who stood by him, campaigned with him, advocated for his policies, and his chief of staff was so concerned about his safety because the violence here and the threats was of no concern, it seems, as you read this indictment, and that also stuck out to me.
Coming up, did Jack Smith set a trap for Donald Trump? NBC's Ken Delanian is reading between the lines of the federal indictment, and he joins the conversation next on Morning Joe.
New project.
Welcome back. We kicked off our 6 a.m. hour this morning with a full legal of the federal indictment of former President Donald Trump. Former FBI official Chuck Rosenberg weighed in, but first, here's NBC News Justice correspondent Ken Delanian.
What's so remarkable about this indictment is it starts off, as you said, with Jack Smith acknowledging that Donald Trump not only had the right to claim fraud in the election, he had the right to lie about it. He had the First Amendment right to lie, but not to launch a campaign of what Smith called pervasive and destabilizing lies and then act on it. That crossed the line into criminal conspiracy, and the indictment charges 3 separate conspiracies: conspiracy to defraud the United States, conspiracy to obstruct that official proceeding of Congress on January 6th, and conspiracy to deprive voters of their rights in those 7 states. And what I found remarkable, because there wasn't a lot of reporting on this along the way, is that I was wondering whether they were going to charge, and they did, the plot to subvert the Justice Department, which I found to be the most dangerous part of the whole thing. Because remember, Jeffrey Clark, co-conspirator number 4 in this indictment, wanted the DOJ to send a letter to states saying that the Justice Department had found pervasive fraud in the election, and we recommend that you call your legislature into special session. And as you said, Joe, those Trump-appointed career people at the Justice Department said, that's crazy, we're not doing that, and they stopped it. But nonetheless, Jack Smith has charged it in a conspiracy as part of this indictment here. And the indictment doesn't charge Donald Trump with inciting the violence on January 6th. It doesn't charge him with seditious conspiracy. But what it clearly articulates towards the end is that Donald Trump, as the indictment puts it, trying to exploit, and did exploit, the violence at the Capitol on January 6th to continue his campaign, his alleged campaign, to try to delay and subvert the lawful transfer of power, in part by calling 7 separate lawmakers. And there's some new evidence about calling senators, even as the violence was unfolding, and asking them to continue to delay. And last thing I'll say is that, and I'm stealing a little bit from Chuck Rosenberg here, so forgive me, Chuck, but there are legitimate defenses. Despite all the evidence that you laid out, a lot of people I talk to think that Donald Trump could persuasively claim that he legitimately believed the election was stolen, and or that he was relying on the advice of lawyers. But the problem with that defense is that it seems that it would require him to testify at the trial. Who else can talk about Donald Trump's state of mind? And that obviously would be legally disastrous. So it's a real trap that Jack Smith has set for Donald Trump in a breathtaking 45-page indictment, guys.
It is a breathtaking 45-page indictment. It is narrow, it is focused, it is powerful for the reasons that Ken pointed out. Willie, first of all, he doesn't have to prove that Donald Trump was responsible for the riot. And secondly, he gives up at the very beginning. Donald Trump has a right to lie. If he wants to lie, he has a right to lie. But then he moves on to the conspiracies that he took part in, where he lays it out specifically. I will also say
rights of voters.
The rights of voters. I will also say Jeffrey Clark's name being in there makes one Eric Hirschman very prescient, who as we learned, again, another Donald Trump lawyer, who defended him through impeachment, that defended him to the very end, up until January the 6th, telling Jeffrey Clark, you better get yourself a good criminal defense attorney. And we found out yesterday afternoon at about 5:30 that Eric Hirschman, once again, was right.
Yeah, even a lot of those people who were in the trenches right up to the end knew when it was time to get out, including Hirschman. Joe, even the New York Post is playing it straight today. Conspiracy to defraud the United States, talking about Donald Trump. The New York Daily News, crimes against democracy. This is headline news of papers, not just across the country, but around the world. So, it was invoked there by Ken. We should have a crack at this 45.
That I'm going to read in part from the Wender Mallinger family. It reads, this sentence.
in infamy. It is the day that the American tradition of the peaceful transition of power ended. It was commenced on March 4th, 1797, when John Adams took the oath of office, the 35 words prescribed in the Constitution, and succeeded George Washington as Commander-in-Chief, as head of state, as the second president of the United States of America. There are 45 men who have held that office through President Biden. Each of them was different. Some of them were among the greatest leaders this country has ever produced. The others, not so much. But none of them did what Donald Trump tried to do. None of them attacked the American way of life. And the American way of life is foundationally built on an idea that the people in this country pick the leaders. We decide. We are sovereign. Together, the American people constitute government of the people, by the people, for the people. It is one of the most audacious experiments in American history. What Donald Trump did is more than a betrayal. It's more than felony crime, like those charged and levied against him. What Donald Trump did is commit the singularly greatest breach of trust, the greatest betrayal in the history of the United States. Somewhere in my boxes of mementos, I have an old BlackBerry phone. It was the phone I handed to John McCain with Barack Obama on the other line. It's the phone that John McCain used to congratulate Barack Obama, his political opponent. It's the phone that John McCain used to address Senator Obama as Mr. President-elect for the first time. It was John McCain addressing Barack Obama as Mr. President-elect that mattered. It always has. The American system is built around a very simple idea. It requires that all people who stand for office abide by it. And it's very simple. The outcome of the election is determined by the people who voted in, not by the politicians. I'm with you. What these latest indictments make clear about Trump, at long last, definitively, stripped away are the conspiracies and the nonsense and the non-stop bullshit of the last year. There, in black and
I just killed myself. That's funny.
Donald Trump lost the election.
So stupid.
He did. He plunged the country into years of chaos. He sought to tear down the American Republic and become a king, an emperor, a generalissimo. Whatever it is he would have called himself, even if he continued to use the word president, he would not have been, at least not in the American sense, because he would have been illegitimate. Now, this crisis didn't begin in 2021, nor did it begin in 2020 or 2016. Donald Trump made perfectly clear from the very beginning of his race, when he announced in 2015 that he would be a candidate for president, that he would not concede an election as legitimate that he lost. He was very clear what he said. The only legitimate elections would be the ones that he won. Where all of this was going was perfectly clear. I predicted it in September of 2020. Understand this about the United States. It is a revolutionary country. The American people rose up and overthrew the king.
Our UAV is orbiting the area.
The culture, the history of the country, its elemental defiance, are all steeped in the mythology and the reality of the American Revolution. We live in a country that asserts that rights are not granted by politics, not by kings, not by leaders, but rather by a higher power. The American government is limited in its power. It's limited in what it can do to the individual. That is the genius of the American system. It is the wellspring of American freedom and liberty. And it is what Donald Trump tried to burn down, to steal, to take away from all of us, our birthright, because his ego couldn't handle the rejection at the hands of the American people. And so he did what no president has ever done. No president has ever so selfishly put themselves ahead of the country the way that Donald Trump did. When you look at the images of riot on January 6th, understand what it is you are looking at. These were American citizens, many of them, who had no criminal record until the day they participated in a coup, sedition, treason against their country. They tried to topple the American government, and many of them there that day sought to hang the vice president. Thank you for listening to my political commentary. If you like what you heard today, please also consider news. Please sign up at constitutional protections that he sought to deny all of us. He is innocent until proven guilty. That's in the court of law. But in American politics, we know enough. We know what he did. And because we know what he did, we know what is at stake in this next election. We know what the issues are. They're very simple. Donald Trump seeks to tear
Just went live. We're going over all of the changes made within the new 1.22 update. Remember, if you guys want to stay up to date with any and all news, updates, best classes, best settings, tips and tricks, anything Modern Warfare 2 multiplayer, make sure you guys drop a like the video, subscribe to the channel, and also turn on those post notifications to stay up to date. I got you guys covered, man. Let me know down in the comment section at the end of the video, what are your opinions on the patch notes? And if you guys think it's making a positive or a negative influence to multiplayer. Now, we're going to be going over the weapon balance specifically because that's what I feel is most important. But as you guys can see here, they are showcasing all of the new operators and some of the additional content coming within notes. And you guys think it's making a